Hey everyone, Matron here, bringing you another StarCraft 2 commentary, this time the Game 2 of the Best of 3 series, featuring Liquid Jinro spawning as the red Terran in the western position here on MLG Dual Site, and his opponent will be viOLet, who is spawning as the blue Zerg in the eastern position. viOLet did lose that first game on Zelnaga Caverns after a brutal proxy 2-racks into bunker pressure by Jinro. He lost his natural, he was pretty much behind the entire game. He did pull even a little bit there in the mid game once he was able to get up on 4 bases and trade pretty effectively with Jinro, but he was just never able to do the economic harassment that you need to do to be able to trade like that, and Jinro finally overwhelmed him after taking down the gold and the third base. So viOLet, this was his map choice. So obviously he's got something prepared here. Dual Site is a little bit more of a wide open map. Somewhat like Zelnaga Caverns, you've got a lot of space here to defend around your natural, but really the center of the map can be controlled by these 2 watchtowers, probably the reason they named it Dual Site, and it can really give you just a ton of vision with good overlord placement as well. You can shut down a lot of drop play. You can also have a lot of different areas and paths for attack, which really makes it a good Zerg map, as we see viOLet sending that first drone all the way over into even his third, checking for those proxy racks as once again he does not want to lose to the same sort of build as he did in the last game, but it looks like Jinro going to be playing a little bit more traditional here. He does have up his barracks, has yet to start a gas though, so I wonder whether he will be going with Hellions again. He did go into Blue Flame Hellions in the last game after taking quite the advantage, but he did lose those Hellions in a little bit of miss micro there, and I think that was actually the point in time where viOLet was able to get back into it in the mid game. So hopefully Jinro learned from that mistake and will take any sort of advantage that he earns more seriously, or he can take better advantage of it of this time. See, he's also just hitting that initial watchtower, which is a little bit mislabeled there, and that's never been fixed. And viOLet is taking his expansion, which is pretty standard build, as well as his spawning pool, but has yet to take a gas. In the last game he took his gas a little bit earlier, so he won't have speed quite as early this time, but he knows that probably just a gasless 1-racks expand might be coming from Jinro here. It looks like Jinro is banking minerals, and yep, there's the command center coming from him, so it's going to be quite a macro build coming from Jinro, and it's a smart move by viOLet, not getting gas early on. It's going to cost you a drone, a little bit of minerals, and then it's going to cost you mining time as well to get that gas and speed out. So a lot of Zergs, as StarCraft 2 has been more and more refined here, have discovered that I don't need to rush to that gas to take care of speed early on if I know some pressure builds are not coming. So instead, just focusing on his minerals, on his expansion, and getting out just a ton of drones. Right now it is 17 to 17. viOLet coming out with his initial lings as well, so those will be used to defend any sort of little pressure here. That was a nice job taking down that SCV a few moments ago. That basically stops any sort of pressure, as there's no bunker threat. No more SCVs coming across the field, and now these lings are going to try to do some damage to these 2 Marines. It looks like they will get a nice surround on those Marines, so 2 for 2, good trade for viOLet. And now he is preparing a bunker on the low ground so that he can land this command center. And again, in that last game, I feel like he landed those command centers just a little bit late. He didn't really get the economic advantage he could have, and viOLet can be poking in here. He's going to see the bunker. He knows that, again, there was no gas taken early on, so there's probably this expansion here, and this bunker definitely tips him off that will be landing soon. And Jinro are going to be on 2 bases in just a moment. We'll see how viOLet responds. You can either tech up very quickly on 2 bases as a Zerg, or you can try to take a third very quickly of your own. Right now he's just coming out with more and more drones, and that's the perfect move to get saturated on these 2 bases. And again, he's got speed started. He's got 1 drone on gas at the moment, so he could go for any sort of layer upgrade, maybe an evolution chamber upgrade in just a few minutes. We do have double factory coming out for Jinro here, and he's got the reactor about to finish on this racks, so the factory will be landing there. We will have double Hellions coming out here, so those Hellions going to give him good map control, as we see an SCV making its way in here trying to get some scouting information, and all he's going to see is the well saturated natural here, as well as that spine crawler. and it looks like a quick third coming up here for viOLet. So he got decent saturation on his 2 bases before he went for that third, but now it looks like he's going to be going for a base just a little bit behind the second base of Jinro here. Jinro doesn't have great saturation. It is 34 harvesters to 26, but Jinro does have out his first 2 Hellions, another 2 on the way, so once he gets those 4 Hellions, he's going to look to take map control back from the Zerg, perhaps do a little bit of economic damage at the third, and definitely stop these creep tumors from spreading. Something we've learned in the last several months with the popularity of Hellions is that they can control creep pretty well unless you get a number of spine crawlers and queens really to duke it out with them. So Jinro using these 4 Hellions, they're going to make their way across the field. First thing they're going to do is take back these watchtowers. Again, if you check viOLet's vision, he can see so much of the map right now, and that's going to be shut down as these Hellions come and do their best to take back map control here. And once the Zerg does not have vision, he's going to not really know whether any sort of pushes are coming, whether he's safe to make drones, or whether he has to make units to defend an attack. And now we see viOLet going to be using that cocoon to create a roach, and it's actually taken down. I'm not sure whether he gets the minerals back for that or not, but he was forced to go into roach production, and this is something we saw in that first game where he went for roaches a little bit, but Jinro actually stopped his production of Hellions, and then viOLet was sort of stuck on roaches the entire game. This time we see more and more Hellions coming out for Jinro. It looks like 4 at a time now, or what will be 4 at a time perhaps. And he's actually working on Terran vehicle weapons level 1, so he's going to be going for a heavy mech play here, and that's going to start out with Hellions, and he's just got so many on the field right now, 10 of them. They are roasting queens, and these roaches need to be in more numbers than that to be able to take on these Hellions, especially off creep where those Hellions are very quick. They can kite those roaches, they don't do a ton of damage, but viOLet's going to have to make sure that he keeps control on these, keeps a nice spread of roaches, and tries to whittle down these numbers a little bit. Jinro knows he can't take on all these roaches at once, and we see a little bit of a flank being set up here by viOLet. He's going to be able to get into the third. If Jinro does decide to set that up, he can counter anytime he sees a big push coming across, and he's doing his best to take these watchtowers back anytime that he can. He is about halfway done Lair Tech, and Jinro has taken both watchtowers from him, so he might be poking in here with these Zerglings, seeing what kind of army Jinro has. And if he sees this setup right now, he sees just Hellions and just bunkers. He knows that no pressure is going to be coming anytime soon, just harassment. Once he does see the siege tank, and once he sees those tanks in siege mode there, he knows that it's going to be a little bit more dangerous. He might need some sort of standing army, and I'll be interested to see what sort of lair tech he does choose to go for here. He did go for a roach warren, and he's invested in quite a few roaches, so he might decide to go for roach speed so that the roaches can handle Hellions a little bit better, and he really needs to get on the creep spread a little bit better here as well. He's got 2 active tumors down here, and I believe 1 active tumor up top. No, he does not. Right now he is winning the population battle 112 to 100. He's got decent saturation on this third base. It is 66 to 54. Jinro is about to finish his third command center, but I imagine he's going to have a hard time landing that with the immobile siege tanks here. There could be link counters anytime into that third. See viOLet leaving a Zergling there, so he knows the timing of that third. And these Hellions just going to do their best. A nice split here by viOLet with these roaches. It's basically impenetrable at this point. Those Hellions could try to duck in here, but roaches well positioned in the third here, as well as in the natural a little bit with this spine crawler. So viOLet doing a nice job. He's just doing his best to get on this 3-base economy. We check it out, it is now 71 workers, and it looks like these Hellions going to try to take on these roaches. Roach speed about almost done, and we've got Baneling speed almost done, as well as +1 armor. So that armor definitely going to help a little bit early on, especially without basically choosing a tech choice at this point. He has yet to produce a ton of roaches, even though we've got 7 on the way, but the armor going to help the Zerglings and the roaches alike. And it looks like these Lings going to be roasted and found here by these Hellions. Not going to be able to do too much damage, but a lot of these Hellions are in the orange, what Artosis would call pumpkin Hellions, so they're going to have to watch out and make sure that if they do harass, there are no roaches around. Roaches do pretty well against Hellions. Hellions only have that 90 HP. Roaches at this point doing 16 damage, so just a few shots. And now it looks like viOLet wants to put on a little bit of pressure with these roaches. He knows that there are not too many tanks here, and if he's able to get in and focus fire down these tanks, these Hellions just going to melt under the focus fire of these roaches. And now it looks like the roaches might be trying to focus down this command center, turned into planetary fortress before it's able to become a planetary. These siege tanks being landed on the, or being set up on the low ground, and mules being landed here to try to repair this planetary fortress, which did finish. But viOLet, a pretty decent trade there, was able to take down a tank or two and the majority of the Hellions. So now Jinro is just working off of these 4 factories. He's got to decide whether he wants to use his minerals on more Hellions or whether he's going to come out with more of the Thors and the siege tanks. And again, with just these 5 Hellions now, he's not going to really be able to do too much harassment, and any large group of Lings or Roaches catching these Hellions in the midfield, and he could lose them once again. It looks like viOLet does have speed finished on his Overlord. He's actually got Ventral Sacs coming as well, so he could be going for some sort of drop here. And against Mech, it's very good to drop because Mech is just so immobile. He's got siege tanks here set up at the 3rd, but if you drop maybe in the main, he doesn't have a lot of defenses here. 1 siege tank, you could quickly focus that down. He is setting up missile turrets, probably expecting some sort of mutaplay coming, and the Spire is on the way for viOLet, so Jinro is ahead of the game just a few minutes here, so should be safe against mutas, but any sort of drop play into the main could be quite effective. And again, this is what I'm talking about, these Roaches, now that they have speed, catching these Hellions, really doing a lot of damage to them, and they might be able to clean up all the Hellions. If that happens, Jinro could be in trouble. Those Hellions basically holding map control for him, and viOLet wrestling it back. And now viOLet knows that no sort of harassment can really come here from Jinro at this point. And again, these Hellions being caught out in the open field by those speed Roaches and those speedlings. And viOLet going to be pretty comfortable on his 4 base here. He's taking the gold. He's got a few Roaches here going to be preventing or timing that gold for Jinro, and it looks like Jinro is going to be investing in a quad drop of Hellions here, but he passed over the creep, so viOLet knows this is coming, and I imagine he's not going to be able to do too much damage. Blue Flame has finished for those Hellions. They're able to take down 1 drone, but they see that the Roaches and the Lings are there to greet them, and they know they're not going to be able to do too much more damage. But at this point, oh wow, missed a big drop in the main, and this is what viOLet needs to do. He needs to go after some of these production structures, tech labs, and thin up this Hellion count. Jinro doing a nice job of repairing this armory though. That armory is very important, going for the weapons level 3 for the vehicles. If that had finished, if it does finish, it's going to be a considerable DPS boost to the army of Jinro. And it looks like burrowing there is viOLet, and viOLet just did not do as much damage as I would have liked to see with that drop. At the same time, he is in the 3rd trying to do some economic damage. If we check the workers' loss count, it is 14 to 2 at this point. So viOLet's done a little bit of harassment. It is now 79 to 65. So he actually is still behind in workers, creating a number of buildings there to go down from his 71, but he's going to force a lot of SCVs out from Jinro at this point, and Jinro on 3 base, 81 SCVs might be a little bit oversaturated for him. If we check out his main, he's not done a big transfer yet, and his natural also very oversaturated. And at this point, he knows he doesn't have map control, so he might be feeling like he can't really do the transfer over to the gold into the 3rd and still be safe. We saw the 3rd under fire there from those Roaches, and viOLet with decent creep spread into the southern, southeastern portion of the map here is going to be very mobile with the speedlings and the Roaches. We've got a Greater Spire on the way for viOLet, a Purred Roach there, pretty cute. That's going to prevent any land here for Jinro, and he's going to have to scan, waste 300 minerals worth of a mule to take down that Roach, so a good trade for viOLet, also delaying that gold base just a little bit longer. Might be poking down here, but he sees these siege tanks. I don't think he can take this on, just so many tanks, so has to retreat back here. His Greater Spire is complete. He's actually pretty down in the food count, 188 to 170, so needs to come out with, well, that'll do it. He's coming out with 10 Broodlords, so that'll quickly even things up in terms of the population battle, and we've got more and more Hellions coming out for Jinro, so these Hellions I don't think have really done all that much damage. See viOLet taking a 5th here. In the mid game, the Roach is really shutting down those Hellions, and the fact that Jinro just keeps making Hellions, I'm not really sure he's getting any return on his investment. He's got 12 Hellions, 13 tanks, 4 Thors right now, and viOLet doing his best to try to thin out the tank herd here a little bit. but still quite a few tanks, 12 of them on the field for Jinro, but they are quite spread out. He's got one in his main here, protecting against any sort of drops. Finally, we see a big transfer coming here from Jinro, perhaps over to this gold, and he really hasn't gotten this up and running too long. We see the economic advantage clearly in viOLet's favor. It is 1800 to 1400, even though he's down in harvesters by about 25. So Jinro's 200 is going to be considerably weaker in the army count because he has got 25 extra harvesters, even though he does have mules. So interesting choice by him, perhaps a little bit oversaturated. Now viOLet moving across the field with these Broodlords, and this is just a ton of Broodlords. If we check the unit counting station, already 7 Vikings on the field, but there are still 5 Corruptors and there are 4 Infestors as well. Looks like Jinro is sacrificing some SCVs for scouting information here. Wants to see what's coming. Maybe he wants to have those Broodlords blow their double Broodling right off the start. Broodlords regenerate those Broodlings. On their first attack, they fired 2 Broodlings off. On their second, they attacked just with the 1 Broodling. So decent idea to have those Broodlings use those on the SCVs. And now we see a big engagement coming in here. A fungal growth on those Vikings, but doing a nice job kiting with those Vikings. And Jinro doing his best to defend against these Broodlords, but he's just got a really big lack of Vikings at this point. The Corruptors with the fungal growth able to take on those Vikings almost head to head, and until he gets more Vikings out, he's getting out 3 at a time. These Thors doing their best to defend, but they're not in range to get the volleys on the Broodlords like they would like. Their Broodlords do tend to stack up a little bit, and the Thors can do some decent damage. No Queens brought here for Transfuse. One of the Broodlords quite low, but they're just wrecking house here, sieging the Terran army. Another fungal goes off on those Vikings. The Corruptors doing their best to keep the Viking count thin. There's now 5 Vikings in production at a time, so it might be enough to turn this around, but just definitely going to be losing this natural. Probably going to be losing these 3 Thors as well. You see these Thors racking up the kills, but those are all on Broodlings. You don't need 30 Broodling kills. You have to take out those Broodlords. And we've got these Vikings massing up here, trying to be effective and focus down just a Corruptor or 2 at a time. We've got more Roaches and Corruptors coming out for viOLet. It is 193 123. These Broodlords definitely turning around this game. They will be focusing down this Thor. The 3 already fallen here in the natural. So just a big siege on the natural and the main now of Jinro. And there's the GG from Jinro. He had actually a lot of his forces still spread out here in the 3rd and the 4th here at the gold. He had a Thor or 2. He had most of his siege tanks. And if you are heavily invested in siege tanks and in Thors, Broodlord is the perfect answer to those, especially in mass, where you can't get out a ton of Vikings all at once to go head to head with those 10 Broodlords. And we see just how good those Broodlings were, taking down all of the SCVs and the majority of the health on that orbital command. And I think Jinro basically read the writing on the wall there and knew that this game was lost basically at the point where he lost map control. I think that the Roach counter there by viOLet was a pretty good idea. He was able to make it so those Hellions weren't able to do any sort of damage. He didn't have to worry about remaking drones or being harassed or anything. He was able to take the map, get decent creep spread, and start his own multi-prong harassment and attack. The drop didn't do too much in the main, but he did a little bit of damage at the 3rd at the same time, so good multitasking by him, and he evens up this series 1 game apiece, and now it goes into the all-important Game 3 where Jinro will have the map choice. So winning that first game is important because it definitely gives you the map choice in Game 3 if it's forced. So we'll see what Jinro chooses to do in terms of map. I'll go ahead and cast that one now. Thanks for watching this one. Take care.